So I just recently finished reading Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, and I have to say, this has easily become my favorite read of the year so far. I was a little skeptical going in. A lot of my friends said that this could be argued to be the great American novel. And I would have thought, no way, nothing can touch Moby Dick, nothing can touch Steinbeck's East of Eden, but I think Cormac McCarthy really gives them a run for his money here. I mean, Blood Meridian seems to be heavily inspired by Moby Dick, along with John Milton's Paradise Lost, and of course the Bible too, right? That this book, I'm blown away with the amount of sort of biblical imagery and allusions to the great books of the past there are. But really, this book is almost apocalyptic in its language. What I love is that this is not just a story about sort of gratuitous violence and the bloody, rugged reality of the 19th century American Wild West, but really, this book it's made by its villain, right? Judge Holden, one of the greatest antagonists in all of literature. And I think this novel is really about this madman, the judge, and his cosmic war against the natural divine moral order itself. Excuse me, the divine moral order. So I'm just going to discuss a little bit of that today. So first, as a bit of a recap on the plot, it does follow the kid. He's a protagonist, adolescent, runs away from home. We don't really know much of his past, but he goes to Mexico and ends up joining a scalping gang, kind of out of necessity. He's going to die otherwise. And so the plot more or less follows this scalping gang by Glanton. They're commissioned by the government to hunt down Comanche Indians, because the Comanches are, of course, terrorizing civilians everywhere. Of course, in true McCarthy fashion, the Glanton gang is anything but heroic, right? They're just bloody mercenaries. They murder and maim for torture, torment, and profit. So, again, this story, it doesn't really have a developed plot. It's far more of just this almost nihilistic maelstrom of violence. So the interesting person who stands out here is, again, the villain, Judge Holden. He sort of stands out from the rest of the Glantons gang, because where the rest of the gang are rather base and simplistic criminals, the judge is remarkably intellectual, right? He's very high-minded. He's well-versed in history, rhetoric, philosophy, law, language, science, so on and so forth, right? This is an educated man, whereas the criminals may have been there out of necessity. The judge is here because he wants to be, it seems. He doesn't have to be there. He could be doing anything he wants, but he loves this chaos. So we start to understand that there is a very, very dark philosophy motivating this man. I'll read you a quote here that I have saved. It goes, the judge, when he begins to sort of, this is his thing, is as he sits around the campfire with the gang members, he'll kind of give little nuggets about what his true agenda is out here. He first states that, in his own words, war is the truest form of divination. It is the testing of one's will and the will of another within that larger will, which, because it binds them, is therefore forced to select. War is the ultimate gain, because war is at last a forcing unity of existence. War is God. So, already that's sort of a chilling introduction. Nothing groundbreaking on itself, but we get the sense that this man is Darwinian, right? That he lives in a sort of amoral world where might is right and it's survival of the fittest, right? War is God, and therefore the strong have a moral right, if not a moral obligation, to consume and eat the weak. And then this sort of philosophy only becomes even more disturbing when we see this sort of the origin story of the judge, or the closest thing we get to an origin story. We find out that the question becomes, how did the judge even join Glanton's gang? Well, we discover that Glanton and his gang were at one point in the desert running away from a group of Comanche Indians who were chasing them down. They were clearly outnumbered, I believe, out of gunpowder. And they find the judge sitting alone in the desert, sitting on a rock. Very weird, right? Very weird imagery. Glanton comes up to him. The judge kind of whispers into his ear. We don't know what is said to Glanton, but suddenly Glanton seems won over by the judge and welcomes him into the gang. So this sort of introductory imagery, this introduction is filled with imagery. For one, the judge sitting alone on a rock. It seems to me that is a connotation of Christ in the desert, right? That Christ, before he begins his ministry, he says that he has to, he fasts in the desert for 40 days, sitting alone on rocks in contemplation. But of course, the judge is a villain, right? So the judge would then therefore be a sort of inversion on this Christ character, where Christ is the logos, right? That which creates heaven and earth. The judge is a sort of anti-logos, right? He is that which consumes and which destroys. This certainly fits into his sort of Darwinian philosophy that might makes right and war is only God. So there you have this sort of akin to Satan, and this is only further referenced. A little later on, the judge will save the Glanton's gang from the Comanches by teaching them how to make gunpowder from the earth with his knowledge of science, which is a sort of it's an allusion to Satan in Paradise Lost, where he teaches the demons after they are defeated and in hell. He teaches them how they can make riches from the recesses of the earth. So that's the point, right? That even just from this introduction alone from the judge, we can feel his evil presence just from the imagery, just from not even what he says, but how he conveys himself. But then finally, we do get a sort of iota into the true recesses of his heart and what he's really after. This comes a little later on into the narrative. I believe it's about page 207 in this book here, but the judge is again at the campfire, and one of the gang members, Toadvine, he sees the judge sort of scribbling into his notebook, right? The judge is always doing this. He's always scribbling things into his notebook, taking notes. And the Toadvine effectively asks the judge, like, why are you writing all the time? Like, what's the point of all of this? And the judge, his answer is very weird. He says, whatever in creation exists without my knowledge exists without my consent. McCarthy continues that the judge looked about the dark forest in which they were about. He nodded towards the specimens he'd collected. These anonymous creatures may seem little or nothing in the world, yet the smallest crumb can devour us. Any smallest thing beneath yon rock out of men's knowing. Only nature can enslave man, and only when the existence of each last entity is routed out and made to stand naked before him will he be properly suzerain of the earth. What's a suzerain? Toadvine asked. Suzerain is a special kind of keeper, the judge said. He rules even where there are other rulers. His authority countermands all, and this is my claim. Everywhere on earth are pockets of autonomous life. Autonomous. In order for it to be mine, nothing must be permitted to occur save by my dispensation. Right? So this is terrifying, because not only does the judge have a god complex like any great literary villain will have, but it seems that there's something extra going on here, that the judge doesn't just want to be God in the name of sort of power or autonomy or worship or pride, but he has these sort of sadistic purposes, right? Whatever exists in creation without my knowing exists without my consent. But I am a suzerain, right? I am the ruler over rulers. In order for autonomous life to be mine, nothing must be permitted to occur save by my dispensation. So the judge wants to enslave everything. This is why he wants to be God. It's not for freedom or personal gain. It's so that he can create a sort of a Dante-esque inferno on earth that he is the overseer of, right? He wants to be the warden of hell, effectively. And this is more or less the answer to the question of why is the judge here in the desert in the first place? Why does he join the scalping gang? Why is he simply sitting around slaughtering people, right? He loves this philosophy. All he wants to do, he is an anti-logos. All he wants to do is enslave and destroy and corrupt creation. He has no desire for personal gain. His only gain is the pleasure he feels in the destruction, damnation, and enslavement and suffering of all. He wants a prolonged eternity of hell on earth. And that, I think, is precisely what makes him stand apart from every other literary character. There's no way you can reason with this man because this man wants nothing. He himself more or less says, I'm going to paraphrase, but they're talking about scripture at one point at the fireplace, he and the gang. And someone sort of warns the judge. He's like, hey, judge, remember what the good book says. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. And the judge just sort of smiles and says, and what good man wouldn't want it any other way, right? That the judge himself, there's nothing he would love more than to be murdered or maimed in battle himself, right? So there's literally nothing you can do to this man, and there's nothing you can offer him. He's truly a sort of a nightmare of a character. And of course, this is sort of being interwoven throughout this apocalyptic West, that this is the sort of imagery of Again, not just Satan, but you have Moby Dick, you have Captain Ahab in here, the sort of monomaniacal desire to really embrace evil incarnate. So I could go on, but I'll more or less end it here. If we're looking for where there's any sort of a modicum of hope here in the story, and this is a semi-spoiler, but the one bit of hope that Cormac McCarthy offers us is it lies in the protagonist, the kid, because the kid is the only character who has a twinge of consciousness. And the judge recognizes this. He later says that the kid mutinies against the gang because he refuses to truly become evil. And this consciousness that the kid has, this capacity to feel good or empathy, this is a blight on the judge's philosophy because, again, the judge denies good and evil. Only war exists and man is depraved. But so the kid's goodness is a threat, and the judge wants to sort of corrupt the kid to make him his disciple and take him under his wing. But the kid, he refuses this. He refuses to go along with the judge. And that's the only time you ever see the judge disappointed in this story. At one point, he sort of cries out, "You've disappointed me, my boy," as he then goes and tries to kill the kid. So I know a lot of people will read Blood Meridian and they'd like to think that the judge is triumphant because, again, violence does reign supreme in here. But really the lasting hope has to fixate on the fact that the kid's defiance against the judge is an immortal blight on the judge's philosophy, that man is not merely a depraved being and that life is more than the simple reality of might makes right and war and terror, that even the submission of the weak, even if the weak gets sort of consumed or beaten down or trampled as the weak do in the story, the very fact that some of these innocent people do persevere and cling to goodness in the face of suffering shows a sort of spiritual rebellion and a spiritual defeat to the judge, right? The judge is certainly not just a man who wants material reign, right? He wants to affirm that the only God is war. So I think that's the only answer to the judge, and the only hope is that no, if the judge is wrong. He may be triumphant by worldly means and by the means of power, but he certainly is not right in his philosophies. And so the great irony is that the great man is actually a great fool. That's how I would take it away anyways. So, yeah, I appreciate you watching as always. If you enjoy this, I do, of course, go deeper on my Substack as well. I'll link that below. I do about 2 or so articles a week. And if you're certainly a Christian man looking to either get more in touch with the great books or with your faith or even lose a couple of pounds, I am a personal trainer. I'm taking on more clients as well. So if you're looking for tutoring or personal training, I'll drop a link to my coaching as well. Thank you so much for watching as always, my friend, and I hope you have a blessed rest of your day. Take care.